check, check. Okay,
Good.
Mr. Chairman, we're ready when you are.
All right, I've got 6:30 on the clock. I hereby call the meeting of the City of Riverside Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Here.
Mr. Cron?
Excused.
So, Mr. Timbrook?
Here.
And we still need to swear in a new member. So,
Okay, all right, well, as the next agenda item then, let's go into the oath of office. Mr. Walling, will you please read the oath of office in front of you?
I, Martin Walling, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Ohio, and obey the laws thereof, and that I will, in all respects, uphold and enforce the provisions of the charter and ordinances of the city of Riverside, Ohio, and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Riverside Board of Zoning Appeals, upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you, sir. Please sign the form. All right, well, welcome, City of Riverside Board of Zoning Appeals.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, do you need to call Mr. Walling's name?
I now have him in attendance,
All right,
yes.
thank you.
It's official.
It is now
Yes.
official. Okay, let's see. Let's look at the minutes from the previous meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the January 23rd meeting? Are there any comments or changes?
Nope. Reviewed it.
Hearing, seeing none, the minutes stand approved as printed here.
Do I need to second or?
No,
Oh, man,
we're good.
we'll roll right along.
Did we approve the agenda already?
Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes. Second. First.
First, second. All those, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Agenda is approved. Okay, I think with that, we can roll right into our cases here. First case is BZA case 24-1 4888 Airway Road. Would the city like to brief us on what's going on here?
It's all yours.
Thank you. First, I will swear in as well, or do the oath. I, Nia Holt, 5200 Springfield Street, Riverside, Ohio, affirm that the testimony I am about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge. So this is a variance from our zoning code, section 1115.09, to allow a sign to be increased for the maximum square footage in a multi-tenant building. That is important because the maximum square footage for this type of structure is 50 square feet, which is different from a normal standalone structure. The applicant is requesting to increase the overall sign's square footage by 50 square feet, which is, 80 square feet, which is a variance of 160% increase. Here is the aerial map of this section of the shopping center that this site is in. It is here in the shopping center. I'm sure many of you at home are familiar with it, and the board as well. The overall shopping center is 24 acres. It is outside of the source water protection area, which is of note, which much of our community is covered by that overlay. This is the Planet Fitness located in the Airway Shopping Center, and they are updating their signage. The current sign is 147 square feet, and they are dropping it a little bit to 130 square feet. However, as noted, that is over the maximum square footage of 50 square feet. It should be noted that we don't have any records of the original sign permit for this sign that is there now. But this change does trigger them to come to you for the variance and for them to come into compliance with all current sign code, permitting, all of that. So this is what they are proposing to replace the current sign with. Now, if they do go to 50 square feet, this is a rendering of what that would look like on the facade of their area of the shopping center. This is what is currently there. And this is what some of the other building, or businesses, excuse me, look like in that shopping center to the east, and a few to the west. And some other businesses in the shopping center as well. Now I'm going back to their tenant space, so you can see it again, and just more pictures of the same space. It's not going to change much. Now, just based purely on the code and the standards of approval that you have in your packet, and we're going into that in more detail, I cannot recommend approval. There's not enough to justify it, and it does not meet the standards of approval. This is a substantial variance. The current design is not the minimum necessary to afford relief. They have a new sign could meet the code requirements, and the spirit intent behind the zoning code would not be observed. So the criteria for granting a variance is there has to be something particular about the size of the lot, the building, something that makes it different than other buildings or lots in that same district. All of the factors need to be met, that there is essential character of the neighborhood would not be altered, and other adjoining properties would not suffer because of the variance. The spirit and intent behind the zoning code would need to be observed and substantial justice done. That the variance is not, is necessary to afford relief to the applicant, and nothing with the variance would cause any effect to the delivery of government services. You should also consider, of course, the applicant's knowledge of the zoning code, whether there would be a return to the applicant for reasonable use of land, and whether there is any other method besides the variance available to the applicant. Now, moving on, your required actions as the Board of Zoning Appeals. You can either approve the application as it's presented, granting the variance for the proposed sign, approve with conditions, that's within your power, or deny the application, which is staff recommendation. It is not on here, but if you need more information, you can table the case to a date certain with discussion of that option with the applicant. Is there any questions?
I've got a couple questions.
All
A few
right.
things I know we commonly talk about with these kinds of cases. So in the shopping center, there's
Yes.
a lot of other signs, some right next to them, or I'm trying to go to the right page, or in the area, right?
Yes.
And I guess, are they compliant?
Well, it's hard to know because a lot of those signs do not have permit information on file, or they were granted variances when the square footage amount was a maximum of 25 square feet. And so looking back at those records, the board at that time thought that that was way too small, and given that, the planning commission and the council made those changes to up it to 50 square feet in 2027. 2000.
2017.
Thank you.
Mm.
That's the,
4 years in the future, they have to-
yes, yeah.
Okay,
So, can I jump in? on
of course,
that?
Yes.
please.
So they didn't necessarily consider the store size. Some of the frontages are larger
Mhm.
and some are smaller. So some would need perhaps a maximum of 50 square feet. But if you have an even larger storefront, which looks like this Planet Fitness does have,
Mhm.
do we know exactly how many spaces they rented out?
I don't know. That's something that you would have to ask the applicant.
That is interesting, right? Because, I mean, the barber shop back in the corner has a tiny banner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, and they have
Mhm.
no,
And-
frontage versus Planet Fitness, which has
Which has
significant
the
frontage.
significant frontage, so if I'm looking at it,
And I will say the barbershop does have a sign permit.
Good.
okay.
Lisa, I noticed the same thing in regards to signage as opposed to lease space
Yes.
frontage. I took a drive-through, I noticed at Dollar Tree and Big Bob's Flooring Outlet, is unusually large. So I don't know how long Biggs Bob has been there, but did they also apply for a zoning permit, or was the old zoning law in effect when they moved into that space?
So I was not able to find records for those.
And with the Dollar Tree?
I would have to look for the Dollar Tree, but I know I don't have it for the furniture store.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's, because the shopping center, you can lease more than one space,
Mhm.
that creates more frontage space for the sign, which would kind of make it uniform with the store. You know, you have a big frontage, then you have this little sign, or you have a little store, and you
Right.
have this big frontage. Do you just want to carte blanche it? But not all the store frontages are the same, so.
So how
Does the code address that at all?
So the code addresses that for standalone buildings. How the sign code is written is for the wall space for a standalone building. That's how the code works. But for these multi-tenant structures, it is that max. So there is a uniform sign.
Got it. I mean,
for
that's
all of those
that
buildings.
is the corner lot
Yeah.
type case, or
Yeah.
type reason that I think we're hearing this case is because it's different than those
Yeah.
standalone buildings. So Lisa, I think that's a good point.
So that was I guess the intent behind the code is to eventually get it to a point where all those signs are uniform in those types of structures.
Which makes sense. One
Well-
more specific question, I
Yeah.
promise, that I'll hit you on, is do you know El Taco Veloz is new? Is their sign compliant?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
It would make sense if all the stores were uniform, then all the signage could be uniform. But you have, what I'm saying is you have this large space, and then you have this little tiny sign. It's
Yeah.
gonna make the shopping center look empty. So I'm just when you look across on the
Right.
top,
Yeah, because they have
then you have
more
all these
front, yeah.
blank,
Mhm.
and does that kind of hurt the appeal of the shopping center? So
Okay.
I think it's something to think about.
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree. Anything else for the city?
Do we have any representatives here from the sign company?
Yes, we do. Well, not the sign company, we have it for, are they sign company or Planet Fit?
Manager
Planet,
from,
yeah.
area manager, she
Yes.
says.
So the existing sign is not illuminated, correct?
It is.
It is from the inside then? Okay. So that would just negate my next question.
Okay. Anything else for the city before we move into the public portion?
I actually just have one question, just
Sure.
because I enjoy putting Naya on the spot.
She's here.
Do you, yeah, I know, right? I promise this will be relatively easy. Do you know when the council changed the code in 2017 and they adopted this 50-foot square foot maximum?
Like the month?
No, sorry, like
Okay.
when that happened,
Yeah.
did you see anything in your research that spoke to the intent about 50 feet specifically?
I know they looked at other communities around us. So some of those communities that they looked at was Centerville, Fairborn, Huber Heights, just to name a few. And then they settled on that square footage.
Okay, because that's kind of what I was driving at, is whether 50 feet, at the time this was considered in 2017, whether that had any relation to what other cities were doing in their codes, or whether it was developed, that number was agreed upon in some other way. But what I'm hearing you say is that that was around the same size that other cities were requiring, at least at that time,
Yeah.
for signs.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say that was shortly after a 2015 Supreme Court case for signs.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any saved rounds for the city? Okay, then at 6:44, I'll open the public portion. Is there anyone here who would like to speak in favor of the application? Yes. Please approach the podium, and I believe there's an oath up there for you to read as well.
And if you could just pull that microphone down, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. So I'll go ahead with the oath then. I, Gina Trexler, and I'm at 103 Sugarberry because I live in Riverside as well, but at 4888 Airway Road, affirm that the testimony I'm about to give before the Board of Zoning Appeals is correct to the best of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I can be as detailed as you would like, or I can just be short and sweet. It's just, whatever information, you're looking for.
So let's start with the short and sweet and get into questions.
Sure.
Usually that's probably the
Absolutely.
best way it goes.
Absolutely. So our sign the gym was opened in 2011 when the sign was put there at that time. The sign that you saw in the picture was the one that it has never been replaced, so that has been the original sign. We are, by corporate, required to change the sign every 10 years, but we went a little past that. However, I believe that if the sign is as small as their, 50 square feet, it's going to cut down on our visibility tremendously. So when you come into the shopping center from Airway, if you're looking for Planet Fitness, now it's pretty easy to see, but still not, you still have to drive in a little bit. But with that sign, it's going to be extremely difficult for people who are driving by, prospective members, to come in and, possibly be able to see where we're at. We do have signage coming in, but that's also another thing in question because it's not very visible depending on which way you're coming from. It's not really changing anything regarding what we already have there. We do occupy technically two spaces, 4888 and 4892, which makes it a much larger space, as you were saying. So that's one of the reasons, too, that we feel as though it may not be very appealing for a sign to be reduced by that much. And of course, we want prospective members coming by or driving by to be able to see, our signage, to be able to, because we have a lot of walk-ins. So that's basically the, biggest reason behind wanting to, basically keep the sign at the size that it's currently at.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the emblem, you're removing that emblem?
Yes. So because of corporate standards, if we're at about, I think it's about 36 inches per letter, then we no longer need, yes,
So
the
the
gear.
letters will be larger?
Correct.
But there'll be a smaller
Correct,
footprint?
yes. And it's just because of basically, their standards, not necessarily because of the size of the sign. So now it's going to be more of a clean-looking, clean line type. A lot of the Planet Fitnesses are changing it to that now. But yeah, so we no longer would need the gear if we have the sign at the size that we would like to have it at.
Okay. And do you know the size of the letters now and what they will be?
I believe the size of the letters right now, it should be in the paperwork, but I believe it's 36. And I think it's approximately that now. Now, they did say that they were going to try to they were trying to compromise and, kind of go down just a little bit in size. But if we go down any further in size and it's not at 36, it's still going to probably look a little bit too small for that space.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. You mentioned signage coming in. Do you mean do you have signs on the boards that are like there on Airway and then on Woodman?
Correct. So we have, it's a.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture the sign. Is there
Yes.
Planet Fitness one is one of the?
Yeah, and actually
Okay.
it was destroyed recently
Oh.
so that has to be replaced. But then there's a small, kind of kiosk-looking sign when you're coming off of Woodman, but that
Right.
is in such an obscure place that most
It
people
is.
don't even see it. But when you're coming in from Airway is when you're seeing those signs. And even sometimes if you're driving a certain way, it's like hard to see.
Well, I can't remember what's on them, right?
Yeah.
I know Planet Fitness is there, but I
Yeah,
can't
we're one of
remember.
the anchor stores, and that's the other reason too. But I think there's also the main ones like Big Lots and all of those. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is for Naya. So if there's two frontages that is turned into one, right?
Mhm.
So that's that would be 50 square feet per, if there were two?
I do not believe the code differentiates.
Okay.
I think the code says the 50 feet is for that store, or for that, whatever's occupying it.
Right.
Yeah.
But do you
Whatever's
see what I-
replacing
Yeah.
it.
You
Yeah.
see what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, trying to say
Now you're-
100, yeah.
Right.
Now
but-
you got.
But they are
instead
just
of-
one tenant.
So if
Yeah.
there were two separate tenants in those two
Yeah.
that you occupied, there'd be
Right.
two that both could have
Yeah.
50,
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
is,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so then specifically then towards the variance, I think we've talked a lot about the kind of the two lots, one lot, the size,
Right.
of the frontage that you have,
Mm-hmm.
and that length being probably the biggest difference that you see that would lead us down a path towards granting a variance, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Just read through these real quick. Anybody else have any other questions for the applicant? I'll ask one more. I normally ask a couple of these kinds of questions. So, does the bigger sign, in your opinion, the larger sign, the size now or the size that you're proposing to replace it with, does that negatively impact the character of the neighborhood, I guess, of the shopping center?
I'm sorry, does the sign that we're currently wanting to put in, or the one? or
That you're wanting to put in, does
Proposed
that,
sign.
the proposed sign, does that have a negative impact on the neighborhood, the shopping center?
Absolutely not, no, I don't believe so.
Okay, that's what I was asking. was
Yeah,
your opinion,
no,
yes.
yeah.
Okay. And you do believe there would be a hardship around the smaller sign in that you would lose traffic coming in, whether it be from Airway or Woodman, not being able to see that Planet Fitness is back there?
Yes, visibility for sure.
Okay. Anything else for the applicant? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, I appreciate you having me.
Seeing no one else here, I'll skip right to closing the public portion at 6:52 PM. So now we can enter into,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Am I good to go?
You can hang out for a minute, so we're gonna, so up next, what we'll do is we'll deliberate up here with the board. We sometimes have a few follow-up, kind of questions or half questions for the city or for our legal, and then we will make some kind of vote ruling motion. That could be a variety of things that Nia talked about at the beginning.
Okay, sounds great, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's move into, I guess, discussion on this. I normally kick this off with what are we thinking? So I think, Lisa, your point is probably the most interesting of all of them, that we have a double wide, essentially, storefront, right? And then the other most interesting point to me, and I mean, the applicant answered this as well, is understanding would granting a variance like this on the basis that they have this odd condition of having the two, the double wide store, right, the double wide storefront, is that gonna have some negative impact on the shopping center, the city, the neighborhood? And I can't see any way that it does. Every other sign there is either kind of proportionally sized to the store, so it's like, like El Taco Veloz, right? I mean, it's the one wide, and it's got kind of a one wide sign, if you look at it, right? That probably fits the 50-foot, and it makes sense. I think if Planet Fitness were in two, and you had a Planet and a Fitness, and those are separate signs, then it'd be close, and it would be roughly that same size, a little bit smaller, and that would match up. That being said, it's double wide. It's right next to several other stores that are double or more wide, and they all have the signs that run the entire length. They're not proposing excessive heights to the letters that would make it look, ridiculous. It's not much different than what's there right now. So that's my
Yeah.
monologue on my
I think,
thoughts.
yeah.
My take on it is that they've been there since 2011. Planet Fitness Corporate has apparently asked for a new sign every 10 years. They're willing to put that sign up for another 10 years, which means we got a viable business in that shopping center where the people that own the shopping center speak positively about Planet Fitness as well.
Yes, I agree with both of you. So,
Right. And that, I mean, most of what I'm trying to cite here is that I think the economic impact to the business, I mean, it's not, it's not usable, it's not feasible to have something that's gonna require, walk-ins, whether that be a grocery store or a gym, right? Without having, some ability to see it from, the streets. Woodman and Airway are way set back from where this is at, so don't see any issue. Okay. Well, do I have a motion on this case?
Yes. Motion to approve.
I hear a motion to approve, BZA case 24, triple out one. This is our first one of 24. 24 triple out one at 48 Airway Road, based on, the first criteria on whether the property can actually be useful without it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Walling?
Yes.
Mr. Timbrook?
Yes. The motion carries. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right, with that, can move into zoning administrator discussion topics.
You don't have to stay down.
Right. Sorry, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So, I am exploring an online training tool that could be available to the members of the BZA and the Planning Commission for 90 days. You would have your own login, and would give you citizen planner training. So that would be ethics, that would be the principles of everyday boards and commission things. So I wanted to know, before we did that investment, if that would be something that this board would utilize.
I would. Just because it'll keep me on track.
Okay.
And you've done a wonderful job by, letting me know what's available.
Yes.
And so I apologize if I'm tardy in my.
Well, let's look. So Marty, there is a 10-hour training requirement every 2 years.
Okay.
So this online tool actually has 10 hours of training available. So in that 90 days, you would be able to knock about 2 years out.
Yes.
So,
And something I can be doing at my own pace.
yep, in the, 3 months to do it. Not just the citizen trainer where it's stuff specific to boards and commissions, but there's also 300 other courses available if you want to learn about, EV, cars or something. That's in there. So,
I think it's a great idea. I was
Yeah.
worried about who all might want to use that portal right before we go out and make that investment.
Yeah.
But this board has to look at the code a lot, has to balance a lot of those very technical items. I think the training would be good.
okay. Another thing I have done, the Ohio APA, American Planning Association, has put together a booklet just for Ohio based on laws that are specific to our state. I bought a copy for us, so I can print out things that is specific to, again, this board or to the Planning Commission. If you want to check out the whole book, I can set up a way to do that. I think it's another good resource for our team here in our boards and commissions.
I'm going to say yes to all of it.
I forgot to put that on there, that was another thing. So I'm just trying to build up resources so that we can better, yep.
Yeah, and so if anyone out there also is watching and thinking, oh, I might like to join the BZA, right, but is maybe a little nervous about what all it entails or what all we look at, what you might need to know, Naya does a pretty good job of, of keeping us in the know. I think this training module would be one of those
All
ways.
right. That's all I needed to know,
Cool. All right,
and that's all I have.
no matters by the board? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes. First.
Second, we are adjourned.